I never thought a simple phone call would change everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of lazy day where the sun hung heavy in the sky, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. I was in my living room, scrolling through my phone, when my sister called. Her voice was shaking, which was unusual because she was always the calm one. She told me to sit down. I laughed and asked her what was so serious. She said our mother had been keeping a secret from us, a big one, and she had just found out by accident. My sister had been helping our mother clean out the attic, the dusty space full of old Christmas decorations and photo albums. She found a box hidden behind a broken vanity, a box that was not labeled. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to our mother. But the return address was a name we had never heard before. The letters were from a man, and they were love letters, but they were dated from a time long before our father came into the picture. That was not the shocking part. The shocking part was a single photograph tucked at the bottom of the box. It was a picture of our mother, much younger, holding a baby. The baby was not me or my sister. My sister said she confronted our mother right there in the attic. At first, our mother tried to deny it, but then she broke down crying. She admitted that she had a child before she married our father. Asson. She gave him up for adoption when she was just a teenager. She said she had always regretted it, and she thought about him every single day. She never told anyone, not even our father. My sister was furious. She felt betrayed and lied to. She called me because she did not know what to do. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I could not process the information. All my life, I thought I knew my family, but I was just realizing that I knew nothing at all. My mother had a whole other child, a whole other life that she had hidden from us. I told my sister to stay calm and that I would come over. I hung up the phone and just sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. When I arrived at my mother's house an hour later, the air was thick with tension. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. My sister was pacing back and forth in the living room. I sat down across from my mother. I asked her to tell us everything from the beginning. She took a deep breath and started to speak. She told us she was 17 when she got pregnant. The father was a boy from the next town, a summer fling that ended as quickly as it began. He did not want to be involved, and her parents, our grandparents, were strict and religious. They forced her to go away to a home for unwed mothers and give the baby up for adoption. She was not allowed to see him or hold him for very long. She named him Matthew. She said she signed the papers with a broken heart and spent the next 50 years trying to forget that day. She met her father a few years later, and they got married. She was afraid to tell him because she thought he would leave her. She was afraid to tell us because she thought we would be ashamed. She lived with that fear and that guilt for her entire adult life. My sister was not ready to forgive. She was yelling that our mother was a liar and that she had built a whole family on a foundation of deception. I understood my sister's anger, but I also saw the pain in my mother's eyes. I asked my mother if she ever tried to find him. She said she did a few times over the years, but she was always too scared. She was scared of being rejected, scared of disrupting his life, scared of what she might find. She said she thought about him on his birthday every year, and she always hoped that he was happy. She did not even know if he was alive. I felt a strange pull, an urge to find this brother I never knew I had. My sister thought I was crazy. She said we should just leave the past in the past. But I could not do that. I had a brother out there in the world, a brother who did not know he had a mother, and two sisters who were thinking about him. The next day, I started my search. I did not know anything but his first name and the date he was born. I went to the library and looked at old records. I spent hours on the computer, searching online databases. I found a man with the right name and the right age living in a city about 4 hours away from us. I found a phone number. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I dialed the number. A man answered. His voice was deep and gruff. I introduced myself and explained who I was. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I was terrified he would hang up, but he did not. He spoke slowly, his voice filled with disbelief. He said he always knew he was adopted, but he never knew anything about his birth mother. He said he had always wondered where he came from. He was an only child, and his adoptive parents were wonderful to him, but there was always a piece of him that felt empty. We talked for hours that night. He was a carpenter. He was married with 2 children. He loved fishing and woodworking. He was a good man, and it made me feel a strange sense of pride. I told my mother that I found him. She started crying again. She was terrified and excited all at once. She did not know if she had the courage to meet him. My sister was still against the whole thing. She said it would bring nothing but heartache. But I was determined. I arranged for Matthew to come to our town. I told him to meet us at a quiet park near the lake. It was a neutral place, a place where we could talk without any pressure. The day he came, the sky was overcast. The air felt heavy and cool. I saw a man walking towards the bench where my mother and I were sitting. He looked just like our grandfather, same strong jaw and same kind eyes. My mother stood up and her whole body was trembling. He stopped a few feet away from her and just looked at her. She looked back at him, and 1,000 words passed between them in that silent moment. My mother was the first to speak. She apologized. She said she was sorry for giving him up. She said she was sorry for every birthday she missed and every Christmas she was not there. She said she was a coward. Matthew walked closer to her and wrapped his arms around her. He told her it was okay. He said he understood. He said he had a good life and he did not hold any anger against her. He said he was just happy to finally know the truth. My sister was not at the park. She refused to come. But I watched my mother and my long-lost brother sit on that bench and talk for hours. They talked about his childhood, his school, his family. They talked about her life and her regrets. It was like watching two strangers become family in a matter of moments. A few weeks went by, and Matthew started visiting more often. He brought his wife and his kids. My mother was overjoyed. She was cooking huge meals and buying presents. The house that felt so heavy with secrets was now full of laughter and noise. My sister slowly started to come around. She saw how happy our mother was and how kind Matthew was. She saw that he was not a threat to our family, but a blessing. The first time my sister met Matthew, she was awkward and stiff. But Matthew just smiled and told her he was glad to finally meet his baby sister. My sister broke down and cried. She apologized for being so stubborn. We all had a long conversation that night, the four of us, about the past and the future. We talked about all the years we lost and the years we had ahead of us. We decided to have a big family dinner at my mother's house. The whole family was there, my husband and kids, my sister and her family, and Matthew with his whole family. It was chaotic and loud. The kids were running around, and the adults were talking over each other. My mother was in the kitchen, cooking like she always did, but this time she was smiling. She had a new light in her eyes, a lightness that she had been missing for years. I walked into the kitchen to help her, and she hugged me tightly. She thanked me for finding him. She said I gave her back a part of her heart she thought was lost forever. After dinner, we all went into the living room and looked at old photo albums. My mother brought out the album from her childhood, and she showed Matthew pictures of his grandparents. He looked at them with so much interest, trying to find pieces of himself in their faces. My sister brought out the letters from the attic. She had read them all by now, and she said she understood her mother's sadness much better. She said the letters were beautiful and sad and full of hope. My mother blushed. Matthew laughed and said he would not read them. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I was the last one to leave. I hugged my mother goodbye, and she held on to me for a long time. She whispered that she was so grateful for everything and that she loved me more than I could ever know. I drove home with a feeling of peace. I thought about how a secret that was buried for 50 years had finally come to light. It caused pain and anger and confusion, but in the end, it brought more love into our family than we ever had before. We were not just three people anymore. We were a bigger, messier, and more wonderful family. We were whole. The story is about a family who found each other after being separated by time and silence. It is about forgiveness and the courage to face the past. It is about the simple truth that family is not always defined by blood alone, but by the choice to love one another despite the pain. The house was quiet when I walked in that night. My family was already asleep. I sat on the couch in the dark, and I thought about my mother and the weight of the secret she carried for all those years. I thought about Matthew and his search for his origin. I thought about my sister and her justified anger. I felt a deep appreciation for the journey we had all taken. It was a tough journey, full of emotional cliffs and valleys, but it was ours. We had to navigate through anger and mistrust to find a common ground. We had to learn to accept a new person into our hearts, a person who was essentially a stranger, but also a brother and a son. We had to redefine what our family meant. It was not an easy thing to do. It required patience and understanding. In the weeks that followed, Matthew became a regular part of our lives. He came to my daughter's birthday party. He helped my sister build a new deck on her house. He came over to watch football with my husband. It was like he had always been there. The weirdness faded away and was replaced by a normalcy that felt so natural. My mother was a different woman. She was more present and more alive. She started going on walks, and she even joined a book club. The secret that had been a curse for so long was now the key that unlocked a new chapter of happiness for her. I look back at that phone call from my sister, and I realize it was a turning point in my life. It was a moment of chaos that led to a beautiful resolution. It taught me that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a lie. It taught me that love is resilient and can heal even the deepest wounds. I learned that my mother was not perfect, but she was human, and she loved us the best way she knew how. My sister and I grew closer because of it. We went from being sisters to being allies. We tackled this huge family problem together, and we came out stronger on the other side. Now, when we gather for holidays, the table is full. There are new faces and new voices. There are new stories to tell and new memories to make. Matthew's kids call my mother Grandma. My kids call Matthew Uncle. It is a strange and wonderful feeling to watch this new family dynamic form. It is a testament to the power of forgiveness and the human capacity for love. We cannot change the past, but we can shape the future. We chose to embrace our new family member, and in doing so, we filled a void that we did not even know existed. The story I'm telling you now is not just a story about a secret and a discovery. It is a story about healing. It is a story about the complicated nature of family and the incredible strength it takes to forgive. It is a story about a mother who was finally able to put down a heavy burden and a son who was finally able to find his origin. It is a story about two sisters who learned that their family was bigger than they ever imagined. It is a story about love, real and unconditional love that transcends time and circumstance. We are a family that was fractured by a secret and mended by a simple act of reaching out. It took courage to make that phone call, and it took even more courage to show up at that park. But the reward was worth the risk. We gained a brother, a son, and a new sense of unity. Our family story continues to be written, but now it is filled with more hope and more joy than ever before. We learned that sometimes the most painful secrets can lead to the most beautiful reunions, and that the heart has an infinite capacity to love and to grow and to accept new members into its fold.